Joy Drive.
Theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive with Em and Warren.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Good afternoon, Warren. I would like you to cast your mind back to when you were in your early 30s.
That's what you now.
Was that a difficult time? Those decades ago.
You're so cruel. Yes, and it was a difficult time. I think so.
I think so. I think the 30s were really hard.
Yeah, I think so. The 20s and 30s were hard for me, definitely. They were the hardest of all. And then it got better after that. But definitely, and I think it was the whole dating thing. What was it for you?
Yeah, I think 20s were easier for me. I was still like head in the clouds, deluded, and I think pretty idealistic and naive. And 30s, kind of the reality hit. And, you know, while you're in it, you kind of don't really understand what's going on. And also you have so much energy and your hormones are going all over the shop and you just want to do everything and everyone, right? And that just makes things really hard. And for listeners tuning in, we're talking about a show called Swiping America. It is 2023 and it seems all of our dating lives begin from one of the countless apps on our phones. The new series Swiping America, now streaming on Binge, features 4 New Yorkers traveling across the USA dating a total of 155 people over 10 weeks, hoping to find love. The series calls itself a romantic documentary, but it is clearly a reality show, one that involves producers handpicking candidates for the main 4 characters in this latest incarnation of the dating game show. The main characters are Ash, a black lesbian, and Chris, an Indian gay man, along with their straight women counterparts Kisun, who's Korean, and Reagan, who's a white ex-Mormon. The group of beautiful 30-somethings start off as strangers but quickly turn into close friends as they embark on this unusual journey of televised speed dating. You watch them go to places like Miami, New Orleans, Santa Fe and Seattle before ending up finally in Honolulu with their respective favorite match. It's not quite a travelogue, but there's no doubt a substantial part of the viewing pleasure is in the discovery of these various cities and having the opportunity to see parts of the USA that are not just California or New York. Swiping America is a very light viewing, but it's not entirely mindless. It is fairly intriguing to observe the way in which people decide who they like or dislike. Everyone is attractive on the TV show, so it is really about watching how each individual's quirks determine whether or not they connect with romantic prospects. There are attempts to explore the psychology involved in this process of looking for love, but one gets the impression that these characters are not particularly articulate about the deeper emotions that always come into play. And I guess it is admirable that the producers do not probe too much, especially if there are no mental health professionals involved in the process. So I can conclude that the show is quite a bit of fun. It doesn't have the depth of the series that I love. We spoke about 2 weeks ago, Couples Therapy. But Swiping America is fine. I guess watching pretty people fall in love is always a pleasure, especially when you see the red flags and they don't. Warren,
Yes.
Do you think the process was harder for Chris because he's a man or because he's gay?
It's interesting. I think maybe a bit harder because he is gay. But one thing that I do love is the fact that he's a data analyst.
Yes, you were talking about this stuff.
I was talking about that last week, and I was saying to you, Suzy, we need more diverse representation of gay men on the screen. And hello, we've got a data analyst. I mean, I would date that guy right there. That's great.
I would date that guy no matter what job he does. He's so cute.
He is very, very cute. Definitely. I mean, look, I watched the first episode. And there were 2 of us watching it. We were both yawning. And I struggled with the first episode. But by the second episode, I was thinking, I think I have to admit I really love it. I think I'm enjoying it. And now I'm hooked to it. I love it. I find it's a really inclusive dating show. It's probably the most inclusive dating show that we've ever come across. And you're right, it's not like couples therapy. I mean, that was amazing, but we're getting all that analysis behind it and what's going on with the therapist. This doesn't touch on that, and we don't expect it. And when you said that last week we're watching Swiping America, I was expecting, we're just going to watch people on their grinder swiping, because I can do that with my friends at the bar. You know what I mean? That's what everyone's swiping on people all the time. But it wasn't that at all. You don't see the swiping. The matches are presented to the candidates as Bing, you've got a match. So you don't actually see them on the phone just swiping all the time. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I thought, one of the first challenges that came up was the whole veganism. Someone saying, you know what, this is in. I thought that, just without being a spoiler, there was a relationship that looked really, really good, and then veganism rears its head and becomes a non-negotiable. And I thought, this is really good, because it's showing us that as you progress through the dating process and you start to find these things out about people, we realise, okay, it could be good, we could be excited, we could be in that initial, I think this is the one, and then the brakes can go skidding on without warning whatsoever.
It is so hard, isn't it? Because there are some things for you that you can't compromise on. Hopefully not too many, but I think for most people there might be a couple of things that you just are not ready to bend on. In this case, this lady, is a vegan. She feels really strongly about it. But then you also don't want to think like that's the first thing I talk about at a date, right? You don't go on a date and say, look, I'm just not going to be able to compromise on this. So they kind of drag the process, and then inevitably the issue does come up. And in this case, I don't know if it was the second or third date. And then you thought, that's wasted time as well.
Yeah, I feel like she should have said that up in the beginning, or perhaps in the matching process. Look, I will not date someone who is not a vegan, full stop. And then they wouldn't have been a match, because you could see that the other person was a little bit upset and shocked at that. But you know what? To be fair, she said, you know what? I'm not going to change just to get in a relationship with someone. I'm not going to change something fundamental.
Maybe she's using it as an excuse. So maybe after a couple of dates, she's like,
to say I'm vegan.
What? Yeah, I'm vegan. Sorry, I can't do it.
Have you ever used that excuse?
I have used that I cannot date someone who votes for the Liberal Party.
Oh.
I've used that one before.
I used to say that too all the time.
But the difficult thing is I'm always attracted to people who look like they would vote for the Liberal Party.
And then when they say that they do?
I'm like, don't tell me that. Don't tell me the awful truth. Not yet.
Something that I suppose is a little bit annoying, two things that not annoying, but I suppose let out, the nervous giggles. I mean, they are really prominent.
They're really annoying.
But I was really annoyed too. But then you think about it. You're going on your first date with someone. You're out to dinner. I mean, I'm like the most nervous giggler you've ever come across. And I thought, I can understand that. I can see why. And they didn't cut it out, which is great, because it's real. It's what we do when we go out.
But don't you think that most of the giggling came from the straight women?
Oh, I think they were all giggling. I think the gay guys were giggling too.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they were giggling. And then it's kind of funny because they capture really well in the show, that sort of, that awkward catching of eyes.
Yeah.
And you can just see them thinking, I think you're the one. And I wanted to jump at the TV and go, no, it's too soon.
The giggling annoyed me so much. And then I started to think, what is it, about especially those two straight women as contrasting with the lesbian woman. And I just thought, straight women have, just like anyone, they have very strong opinions about things that because they are grown-ups, they have strong beliefs about things. And then these two women, I think they have a very strong sense of self. But when they're dating straight men who have, very fragile egos, they kind of have to giggle their way through so that their personal strong feelings and strong opinions about things are not in the way too much. I see that, when they sense that their true feelings about things are starting to show, they start giggling, almost to like soften that impression. You know, they feel like they need to be liked almost. On one hand, you know, it looks like the women look like they're trying to be liked. And then you can also interpret it as the men are a little bit sensitive, which is my experience of things, is that especially dating straight men. Like, you know, you have to give them a lot of space because they can be very fragile.
Oh, I just got a vision of you and I going on a first date, Suzy. Can you imagine? I'd be nervous giggling and you'd be saying, oh, shut up. It would be so much fun.
I have no patience for that. I mean, unless the person has a sense of humor about it. I think what I would do is I would be probably very good, and I have been very good at acknowledging the awkwardness of it rather than kind of giggling the whole way through. I think that may be the difference in age, like because they're in their 30s, early mid 30s, so maybe there are a lot of kind of social things that are still a little bit uncomfortable for them, which is why they drink so much, I guess.
The other thing is, I mean, Suzy, the other negative, I suppose, is, it's called Swiping America, and the whole premise is they're going to a different city each time, and they go on different dates in each city. So there is, I suppose, an expected travel component, and you did talk about it in your introduction, that we do get to see some of the cities. I'd like to see a little bit more, to be honest. I feel like it's sold as a dating/travel sort of expectation. There's not a lot of the city. You get to see the city skyscape, but that's about it, really.
Yeah,
and maybe one
try
location.
They try to bring the dates to interesting locations, not just bars and restaurants. And sometimes you do get quite quirky places, and that's actually really good to watch. I enjoyed that. And the funny thing is, like, if they do connect well with someone, you know, early in the process, they have to keep moving on.
Oh no,
because they are going on to five more states, which was a little bit strange as a conceit. But they also allowed them to kind of fly people over. Like, if you think that date from, you know, 2 cities ago is still a standout, you can still invite them over, which kind of made sense a little bit.
We're talking about Swiping America, which you can catch on Binge at the moment. I have to admit, though, Suzy, I lost it in tears when that poor mother's talking about her disabled girl. I mean, that came sort of left of field, and I thought, wow, it just shows that you can never make assumptions about people, can you? And what they've got. And I found that so sad. I thought, you know, this woman's got a disabled daughter who she can't even talk to, and
really severely disabled.
And being you know, being able to talk about it.
Yeah, she has so much baggage. She is an ex-Mormon, which is, you know, like a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew, like, by the end of the first episode, I'm like, why did they cast this really annoying woman? And then you just knew that they were gonna, you know, throw a spanner in the works, that there's something really unusual about her. And it was good because we saw how she had to divulge that really important piece of information. And, you know, she's very frank about it in her, you know, in her talking head segments about how do I tell them? When do I tell them? And, you know, when that becomes a topic of discussion, you can't talk about anything else.
Exactly. And it was interesting watching the potential dates, their reactions to it. And they were on the whole really, really good. And it was good to see, well, the ones I've seen have been good anyway. But what a thing to have to carry around and feel nervous about telling people. And we've all got skeletons in the closet, haven't we? That we're scared that we'll be rejected because of something, or, you know, they won't like this about us and what have you. But, you know, I thought it was really good that they included her. I also thought that it was great that the gay guy dated a sex worker. And again, no big deal.
Yeah.
Like, there was no issue. It wasn't, oh my God, you know, there was just another date. And in fact, he really liked it. And I thought, this is really good. It's very diverse and there's no shock factor, and it's just people reacting and dating normally.
Look, I'm a little bit less romantic, because when these things happen, I'm like, oh, they're only reacting this way because there are 5 cameras pointing at them.
Okay, right. I get that. Maybe that's it too.
but that's me, you know. I'm really cynical about these things. But, you know, it is still, I guess it's as close as you can get from to watching modern dating, you know, involving apps, because, you know, things like, what's that, The Bachelor, Bachelorette, and The Ultimatum that we were watching a few weeks ago, those are so far from reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entertainment in a different way, like maths and all that. It's a different kind of entertainment, but I don't think you actually see any dating in those things. But this one, I feel like, yeah, it's got a lot of what the real experience is like in it.
You're very naughty, Suzy. You're very naughty. It is. We are talking about Swiping America, which is on Binge at the moment. I like the fact, and I thought it was good, that they incorporated a retirement home into it as well, you know, and to get the opinion of the older people in the community, because I feel like we don't necessarily get that cross-generational interaction, do we, on the TV screens? I thought that was really lovely, little sweet touch.
I think that's really important. And I was, you know, I was a bit underwhelmed by their opinion. I thought that they might have come in a bit harder with, you know, and kind of not be all so lovey-dovey about it, because we know that marriage is work, requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
But they were framing the, we've been able to stay together for 50, 60 years because we are just really in love. And we know that that's not the truth, that there must have been so much sacrifice, so much compromise, so much work involved, and that should balance out why these young people are always relying on the first impression. They go on the first date and they come back and they'll think, oh, it didn't really work for me. And you think, well, give it a go. Give it a go.
Suzy, I want to be a fly on the wall at one of your dates. I think that'd be so, and just whisper, you know, have like a microphone in your ear.
You know what you're going to be saying? You're just going to be saying, can you just soften? Can you just soften yourself? You don't have to be so hard on the guy the whole time.
It would be hilarious to watch.
Yeah.
Suzy, what are we watching next week?
Taylor Mack's 24-decade history of popular music. Streaming on Binge, it shrinks a 24-hour live performance by Taylor Mack, a very accomplished American queer artist, into a 100-minute film. So 24 hours is shrunk into 100 minutes, and the title of the film is Taylor Mack's 24-decade history of popular music.
Fantastic. I've written it down. 24-decade history of popular music on Binge.
Thank you, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Suzy.
Missed the show? Download the Joy Drive podcast. Head to joy.org.au, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts.